All right, I'm going to talk about using some specific techniques for selecting hairy things. So you're talking about, people who have hair, animals that have hair, or anything else that's fuzzy or furry. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. So I'm going to go over two ways. First off, probably what most of you would assume would be to use your quick selection tool. So that's a brush. You're just going to brush over the image and it will select. And this has a pretty good discrepancy as far as contrast from the background. So this should select for the most part pretty well. Not so great here where this part's a little bit darker, but all right. And so we just kind of go around and select. But you're going to notice if I go to select a mask, first off, we have fringing, and second off, it's not the greatest in the world. And if I look at it on black, you'll specifically see it's just not, it just looks chunky. It looks like a really bad selection, to be honest. Now, when you're in here, you can choose radius, which is under edge detection. May have to be opened up. And when you start pulling on this, you'll notice a much better definition here. Okay? So this radius can be very helpful to you. Now, it may also add in some things you don't want. It's like here's sort of this. But we can touch that up, of course, with our brush here in a minute. So this is already looking a lot better. However, if I put it on white, we can still see a lot of fringing. So let me put it back on black first off, and let's fix with the brush on minus. I'll get rid of this little area here. And if you noticed any other big areas that had problems, you could do that as well. So let me adjust this radius a little bit more. Okay, now, to get rid of the fringing, there's a couple of ways to go about it. I'm going to go ahead and put it on white so we can see, and I'm going to zoom up. There is a button over here called the Refine Edge Brush. And the Refine Edge Brush has a plus or minus. Now, its plus or minus is a little bit weird because the plus is going to refine the edge. So you're going to basically try to put your mouse on the area that's that color that you don't want. And you could go down into your image some as well, and it should start to fade it out. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to make those edges more transparent. And although that's a good thing, it's also a bad thing because sometimes you can see through parts of it. But this can be a useful tool, and then it gets rid of some of that green that we're having issues with. But partially what it's also doing is making those areas transparent. Now, I sometimes get what I can only call smudgy looking, particularly on white. So if you put it on minus, you can erase the refinement, or it's almost kind of like undoing what that brush just did. So that's what that's going to do. Additionally, if you want to get rid of some of that fringing, you're going to click on this decontaminate. And notice that's already about 1,000,000 times better. So there we go. And of course, you can go back over it as much as you need to refine that. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this little line here. All right, so that's the first way. And you can see here how that looks. And then, of course, you would drag that on over. And I'll drag this little guy over to the helicopter so he can hang out. There, he's having a good time. All right, now I'm going to try this again with the other method. And the other method, we are going to use the channels panel, which some of you have accidentally gotten into. So on channels, this divides your picture into red, greens, and blues. And so we're going to find the channel that has the most contrast between the subject and its background. And so if we look here, here's the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. Well, I would hope that you would guess that the blue channel has the most contrast because it's darker. So that's the channel I'm going to make a copy of. I'm going to pull this down to the little new piece of paper button and make a copy of it. So it's right there. I'm not going to use it other than for this purpose, so I'm going to paint on it and all kinds of crazy stuff. While you're on this layer, you're going to press Control L to activate your levels. And we want to darken the darks and whiten the whites. So we're going to pull in, but you don't want to pull in too far. You don't want to lose the edges of your puppy dog. All right, something like that, and then increase your whites. So just kind of go up. All right, so now it's getting a little bit creepy, but that's what we're looking for. All right, so once you get it mostly out there, you're going to hit OK, and then you're going to take a black or white paintbrush and you're going to paint. So like I don't want this part in my selection, so I'm going to paint this out with black. Paint, paint, paint. And paint these in with white. So basically we're creating a mask like you would see when you're in Select a Mask. All right, so there's my there's my mask. All right, so at this point you're going to hold down Control and click on the thumbnail of your copy layer. And then turn back on the RGB layer. We don't want this copy layer. But what that did is it puts the marching ants around our puppy dog. So now, if we go back to our layers, again, you want to be on RGB. It'll light up the others. Now we have a selection, and then we can choose the selection tool and go into select mask. And so we already have a better selection than we started with last time. You should be able to go to decontaminate, do just a tiny bit of edge correction. And then if you notice too much fringing, once again, you would go with that other option with the refine edge brush and then fix that. So in some of these little areas where it doesn't look so good, just kind of go over the edges a little bit, teeny bit. There we go. And then again, new layer or layer mask or however you want to do it. In this case, I'm just going to go new layer with a layer mask. And there we go. So we'll pull him over so you can take a look. And there we go. So we have our fuzzy. We can see his little fuzziness there in front of the helicopter. You can see all those teeny tiny little furs. And if we didn't do that, I can't imagine how long that would take and how zoomed up you'd have to be with, say, the magnetic lasso or the polygon lasso. All right, so there you go. That is how to use channels to make a good selection in Photoshop with furry things.